The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You who so well know the nature of my soul will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was a point definitely settled, but the very definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship of wines. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity to practice imposture on the British and Austrian millionaires. In painting and gemmery, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack. But in the matter of old wines, he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk, one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on a tight-fitting party-striped dress, and his head was surmounted by a conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him, I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today." But I have a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts.
"How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible. And in the middle of the carnival."
"I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain."
"Amontillado?
"I have my doubts."
Amontillado?
"And I must satisfy them."
Amontillado?
"As you're engaged, I am on my way to Lucrezi. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me,
Lucrezi cannot distinguish Amontillado from sherry."
"And yet some fools will have it his taste is a match for your own."
"Come, let us go."
"Whither?"
"To your vault."
"My friend, no. I would not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucrezi—"
"I have no engagement. Come."
"My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. The walls encrusted with nitre."
"Let us go, nevertheless. A cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, you have been imposed upon."
Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm, and, putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a roquelaire closely about my person, I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux, and, giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, questioning him to be cautious as he followed. At length we reached the foot of the descent and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells on his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe?" he asked. "It is farther on," I replied. "But observe the white webwork that gleams from these cavern walls." He turned towards me and looked into my eyes with two filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication. "The nitre?" he asked at length. "The nitre," I replied. "How long have you had that cough?" My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. "Come," I said with decision. "We will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy as once I was. Come, we'll go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is always Lucrezia." "Enough," he said. "My cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough." True, I replied. And indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily, but you must use all proper caution. A draught of this Madoc will defend us from the damps. Here I broke the neck off a bottle I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mould. "Drink," I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly. "I drink," said he, "to the buried that repose around us." "And I to your long life." Again he took my arm and we proceeded. "These vaults are extensive," he said. The Montresors were a great and numerous family. "I forget your arms." A huge human foot d'or on a field azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel. "And the motto?" "Nemo me impune licessit." No one attacks me with impunity. "Good," he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes, and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Madoc. We had passed through long walls, piled high with skeletons, with casks and puncheons intermingling into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. Again I paused. This time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. "The nitre," I said. "See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. Drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we'll go back ere it is too late. Your cough." "It is nothing," I said at last. "Let us go on. But perhaps another draught of the Madoc." I broke and reached him a flasson de Grave. He drained it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed, and threw the bottle upward with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He made the movement again, a grotesque one.
You do not comprehend?
Not I replied.
Then you are not of the Brotherhood.
How?
You are not of the Masons.
Yes, I said. Yes.
You? Impossible. You're a Mason.
A Mason? I replied.
A sign, said he. A sign.
It is this, I answered, drawing from beneath the folds of my roquelaire a trowel.
You jest,
he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces.
But let us proceed. To the Amontillado.
Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the folds of my cloak and again offering him my arm. We continued in our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and, descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flambeau rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared another, less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled high to the vault over the head, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 of its walls were still ornamented in this manner. From the 4th, the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the 4th wall, thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, there appeared another crypt or recess. In depth 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial use within itself, but for merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and circumscribed by its walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depths of the recess. Its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. "Proceed," I said. "Herein is the Amontillado."
"As for the crazy, he is an ignoramus," interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward, and I followed immediately at his heels.
In an instant, he came to the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other 2 feet horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the niche. "Pass your hand," I said, "over the wall. Indeed, it is very damp. You cannot help feeling the nitre. Once more, let me implore you to return." "No? Then I must positively leave you. But first, I must render you all the little attentions within my power."
"Amontillado!"
ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. "True," I said, "the Amontillado." With these words I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I have before spoken. Throwing them aside, I revealed a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance to the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in a good measure worn off. The first indication I had of this was a low, moaning cry from the depths of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man.
There followed then a long and obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth. And then came the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to with the more satisfaction, I ceased my labours and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking had subsided, I resumed the trowel and laid without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The wall was now almost on a level with my breast. Holding my flambeau over the masonwork, I threw a few feeble rays on the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams bursting from the throat of the chained form seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I groped with it about the recess, but the thought of an instant reassured me. I lay my hand on the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided, I surpassed them in volume and in strength, and the clamorer grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I laid the 8th, 9th, and 10th tier. I completed a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position, but then there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice that I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. A very good joke indeed. An excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh over at the palazzo. Over our wine. The Amontillado. The Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will they not be awaiting us at the palazzo, the Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone. Yes, I said. Let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor! Yes, I said. For the love of God. To these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, Fortunato! No answer. I called again, Fortunato! No answer still. I held up a flambeau and dropped it through the remaining aperture and let it fall on the other side. There came forth in reply only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick. It was the dampness of the catacombs that made it so. I hastened to make an end to my labor. I placed the remaining stone in its place and plastered it in. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiescat.